Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Thycotic webinar in running conjunction with Foursys, developing a PAM and privileged password management plan. So just before we kind of launch into the plan and the privileged account management side of things, just a quick word about Foursys. Foursys are a very valued partner for Thycotic. We like Foursys because they invest exceptionally heavily within their technical skills. They really do get to know the products, understand the products, how the products fit, and then be able to actually install and help support those products. When you engage with Foursys, it's also not just a transaction. They look to actually form long-term partnerships with customers. So it's an ongoing relationship, and that's very, very valuable for something like Thycotic, because today we will be having this webinar and hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate what privileged account management is, why it's required, how we can assist with our solutions, but 30 minutes really won't do the solution justice, and we're covering at quite a high level here. So certainly, hopefully you'll see the value of the Thycotic product set, the value of privileged account management, and we would highly advise and recommend that if it does pique interest and you can see the value, that you do engage with Foursys afterwards, and where they can kind of start to drill in and maybe get a tailored one-to-one session with you where you can further go into your specific requirements and challenges, and take things further. So looking at today's agenda, we're going to start off with what is a privileged account. That's probably a very good starting point. What today's risk is and why privileged account management really is required in any organisation today. Have a quick look, an introduction to Secret Server, and then most importantly we'll have a look at a couple of use case scenarios, a couple of challenges where a privileged account management solution can assist, and we'll show how Secret Server does that, and then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time at the end to address any questions that may have come up. So what is a privileged account? In privileged account can mean different things to different people, and different accounts will be considered privileged or not in different organizations, but there are some absolute ones that are consistent throughout most organizations. So immediately we can start to think of non-human accounts, typically shared accounts, existing on pretty much every device, server out there, cloud, on-premise. They really do exist everywhere. So things like root accounts on Unix, Linux boxes, a default admin account on a router, switch, firewall, any kind of security device, the local administrator account on Windows machines, the default domain admin account. They really do exist everywhere. They have high privileges. You know, if they get misused, if someone manages to compromise those, what they can then do with those accounts is pretty much endless. And so we can see on the right hand side here, you know, some of the things that people are going to be able to start to achieve with those accounts. And these accounts are targeted. We've got various surveys, studies. In this case we've got an IANS study in which over 62% of breaches resulted from privileged account abuse, and it really is no surprise that cyber criminals will go after these accounts, and these are a prime target. They do typically consider them to be weak and easy get at, and if they can get these credentials, it's an easy way of them to escalate their privileges. And when they start to do their kind of activities that they really want to get on and do, those kind of activities are kind of more normal for these type of accounts. So if they can compromise these accounts, they're then doing those activities under the context of these privileged accounts, and therefore that traffic blends in a lot more with the normal traffic, and it's that much harder to detect, and the time to detect will typically be quite a lot more considerable. That said, we've still got the threat of the insider. You know, we never know when someone may turn malicious, but it could also be, you know, accidental, not intentional. That, you know, just bad practice of how passwords may be getting shared out today is leading to the exposure of those passwords, and the more it's exposed, the more risk is going to get posed to the business. And traditional perimeter type solutions are not really best placed to deal with this. You know, the credentials, etc., is inside. If someone has already managed to breach the perimeter, then they're not doing anything for protecting these privileged accounts. And so when we look at the privileged accounts, we kind of see these 4 U's. They're often unknown, they're often unmanaged, unprotected, and uncontrolled. So, you know, do we know where all of our privileged accounts are? If we don't know where all the privileged accounts are, then we can't possibly be protecting and managing them all. Do we have, you know, how are those accounts accessed today? Are they in vaults? Are they on Excel spreadsheets? Do we have control as to who can access those? If someone can access a vault, do they have access to everything? Do we have, you know, per credential control as to who can access? They're often unprotected. Do we have, you know, policies and a simple UI and interface to enforce those policies so that we can put security controls onto these accounts and know that they're being applied and applied correctly and consistently? And then typically when someone has access to one of these privileged accounts, they're uncontrolled in that once they have that access, they can do whatever that account can do with its privileges. So, you know, there's no limitation. You know, they may need that account to do a particular job, but by having that access, there's nothing to stop them then going on and doing a load of other activities as well. So these are the kind of things that Thycotic have in place to put these controls and assist you with this. So just got a few questions here in terms of to kind of think to yourself when we're looking at privileged accounts, you know, can we answer these? So some of these are coming back to kind of those 4 U's. What is a privileged account? You ask yourself, what is important to you? What do you class as a privileged account? Where are they? Who's got access to them? Do we have third parties that require access to them? Are they actually being managed? Do we know when they're accessing them? When are the accounts used? What's the risk of these accounts if they get you know, compromised by an external person, by an internal person? We may have security policies in place for our employees, but do they specifically cover privileged accounts? Is there anything in there as to how people should behave and what people should do in terms of access of privileged accounts? Is there compliance and regulation in place that is actually affecting your privileged accounts, that your privileged accounts form part of? And are you reporting on your privileged account use and what accounts you've got on an ongoing manner, or do we have lots of accounts that kind of sit there and we don't know who's got access? And, you know, people's access doesn't need to be there. You know, people move around in organizations, etc. They don't necessarily need to maintain that access all the time. And then we've got some steps in helping to actually implement a privileged account management solution and processes and protecting the privileged accounts. So one of the most important steps needs to be educating employees on the risks and therefore their responsibilities around privileged accounts, to understand how important these are and what threat these can actually pose. We need to try and move away, if we can, from a manual process of managing the privileged accounts. Manually changing passwords, it becomes very tiresome, cumbersome, resource intensive. It's easy to not do it. If we can automate this, then we know it's being done, we know it's being applied consistently. Ideally, we want to make sure that passwords are rotating. We need to know that those passwords are actually valid, that they're going to work, and we can look at, you know, is it just a password, or do we need to change the actual user ID as well? If we can. Remember that when we go to authenticate with some credentials, it's typically a combination of username and password. So if we're never changing the usernames in addition to the password, and especially on systems where it may show the last username, then we've already got 50% of the information there for an attacker or someone wanting to misuse. Do we have proper password policies in place, and are they enforced? Do we have a means of sharing the passwords in a secure manner, not just allowing people to directly share and just hand off to someone without any controls around that. Can privileged accounts just be created? Is there any workflow process on creating privileged accounts? You know, if we're not aware of privileged accounts getting created, it's going to be very difficult to get control and management of all of those accounts. The account should only be requested when they're needed. Accounts should always have an expiration set on them. And then you can report on that, and you can look to review that, and you know, is this account still needed? Yes, okay, we can extend that. But too many times we have accounts created, and then you know, they're no longer used, but they still sit in the system. They're valid accounts. They still hold the permissions they had, so they're open to breach. Can we audit our accounts? Can we see who's got access to what, when they can access, and do we have mechanisms in place to actually discover these accounts? So we can actually find out where they are, where they're used, and then again, that allows us to then have some control of these things. So the Thycotic solution set comprises a few products. Today we're focusing on Secret Server. We also have Password Reset Server. This helps users to be able to reset their own password without having a huge help desk burden. We also have Privilege Manager for Windows and Unix. So this is really the concept of least privileges, only allowing people to be able to do what you want them to be able to do with an account. And then we've also got things like local security solution for controlling local users and groups on machines, security analysis solution, and group management server to kind of start managing group memberships in AD, not necessarily with the IT department, but you know, it's typically more of a business decision, so we can put that in the hands of those group owners. But it's Secret Server that we're focusing on today. So the Secret Server itself is a web-based application, runs on IIS, any Windows Server 2008 R2 upwards, and we use Microsoft SQL Server for the database. At its heart, we can think of Secret Server as a password vault in which we put secrets. And the reason we call it Secret Server and secrets rather than credentials is because we're not just limited to credentials. Although that is a prime focus, we can store files or any bits of important information that we want to control access to and lock away in a secure encrypted vault. The left-hand side is here is different ways of accessing the vault. So predominantly we will use the web browser, and that's what I will demo today, but we do have iOS, Android apps. We do have a Chrome app on the desktop that can also be used. We've also got a number of APIs. So we've got a SOAP-based API, REST API, and application API, and that really helps where we've got config files, where we've got applications, external solutions like vulnerability scanners that may need credentials to actually operate and perform their tasks, and we don't want to store those credentials in those solutions. So what we can do is we can typically replace storing the credentials with an API call, so they can just retrieve the credentials out of the vault as and when they need them. We can authenticate to the Secret Server with local users and groups. We can also integrate with Active Directory, so people can log in with their normal Active Directory username, and on top of that we can overlay multiple two-factor authentication methods as well. The right hand side is really what takes us beyond that just standard password vault. This really gives us the account management. So we can do things like session launching. So rather than users have to go to a vault or go to an Excel spreadsheet, make a note, copy it out, then fire up their own RDP session and then have to put the information in, we can simply just launch the RDP session for them. Very useful. And then on top of that, we can look to record that session. Someone can monitor that session, and when we can give access to a session, we can look at, does the user actually need the password now? Do they need to know the password? They've got access to the system with the credentials, and if that's the case, then we can hide the password, which is going to massively reduce the exposure of that account. We're always auditing within Secret Server. Everything gets audited, but we can fire off events based on certain conditions, and we can always output these events to event management systems, SIEM systems, so you can correlate these events with things that are happening elsewhere on the network. And then one of the big things that we have within the Secret Server is we have a load of password changes, and this allows Secret Server to actively be rotating passwords, actually change passwords to meet complexity requirements, change passwords in an automated manner. This allows it to be done much more frequently, but then stepping on from that, we then sometimes have challenges around service accounts and dependencies, so we can see how we can help with that as well. So a couple of solutions and challenges that we're going to try and address to kind of demonstrate some of the functionality of the product in the console. So one of the first challenges is an IT admin or anyone that has had access to privileged accounts. They're leaving, they're moving within the organization. They do not need to have continued access. So we want to make sure that that access is closed off, that they're not going to be taking that access with them. That can then stem into what if these are service accounts, how do we make sure that once we've changed that password, it's updated on all of the accounts, all of the services, tasks, application pools that are maybe running under the context of that account. This is a very big challenge for many organizations, and a big reason why we see that service account passwords are often never rotated. And then another challenge that we can face and is quite difficult is local admin accounts. So we see very often that we've gone from a management perspective of having the same admin password across all local admin accounts, and this proves then to be quite a big security threat, because now if this account gets compromised, if this account gets known, essentially someone can operate as the local administrator on all of the machines and essentially have full control, and what they can do from there is quite significant. So if I step into the Secret Server interface itself, so on the left hand side I've got a folder structure. In the center I've got access to secrets, and as I click around the folders I get different access to those secrets in those folders. I can search through these, I can do various things through these, I can select them and see the information on these to actually use them. It's a very configurable interface, it's a very simple interface, it's been designed with the administrator in mind to make their life easier. We can put permissions on these folders, so this is typically how we control access. So here I've got access to many folders, but another user logging in may only be given access to the servers folder, for example, so his view would be more like this, which is straight at the servers and then only being able to see what's underneath that. Okay, so very easy to share control. Don't want to dwell on that because it'll take quite a bit of time, but we're very good in permissions. So looking to show some access. So when I look on a secret, quite importantly for this, we have the audit. So anytime a secret is being accessed, anytime I do anything, so I can see here that I viewed this secret, this set of credentials, I displayed the password, I exposed the password, I copied the password to clipboard, I launched an RDP session to this device using these credentials. So this functionality is very important. We're always doing that auditing. We've also got something called expiration here on the secret. This is Secret Server checking to see when was this password last rotated in the vault. Does it fit in with when we want to rotate this password? And when this hits 0, it shows as expired, and then we've got the password changing in Secret Server, and if we have this set to auto change, then Secret Server will automatically rotate this password for us, generate a new one to meet complexity, and then rotate it and update it within the Active Directory for us. Now, the reason why I've just covered those basic core functions is that we can then put those together into that IT admin leaves scenario. So we have an inbuilt report called the user audit report, and on that user audit report we can specify the IT administrator. We can specify a time frame that they may have had access within the system, or that we're interested in. And what we can then do is simply search the history, and Secret Server will go through all of the audits and go, right, this is what this user accessed during this time period. So now I know what the exposure is of this user. I know all of the credentials that this user has accessed. So I've got my reports now. I know what I've got to deal with. But again, we want to automate as much as possible. So I've got this option here to expire now. So rather than Secret Server waiting on that countdown, how many days since that last password changed, if I hit expire now, this will actually go and set the expiration on all of these secrets. What does that do? Well, if I've got auto change enabled on those secrets and with the password changer, that will in turn cause Secret Server to go and rotate all of these passwords with a new password matching my complexity requirements. So exceptionally quickly, I've got a high degree of confidence that I have rotated all of the passwords for all of the credentials that this user had access to, so they no longer are going to be able to use any of those credentials to get any access into the systems. Now, this obviously can then knock on, because what if one of these was a service account? So we have something called dependencies. So if I go to a different account where I've got some dependencies, so again, this is an Active Directory account. I've got expiration set on here. I've got password changing. In this case, I've got the auto change actually enabled. And this is a service account. So if I go to my dependencies tab, I can actually see I've got a couple of services listed. What does this mean? It means that when Secret Server rotates this password on its expiration, Secret Server, after generating the new password, will actually go to these dependencies and update that password on these dependencies. So in this case, these are services, so it's going to go out to the services on these machines, update the new credentials, and then in this case, it's also going to restart the service afterwards. This takes a big manual intensive process away, automates it, makes it typically more reliable. We can add dependencies via a manual method, so we can choose dependency from a list, add it in and populate it, but the real power here comes in actually having discovery and being able to find these dependencies. So we have functionality called discovery in the Secret Server, and this is a process that runs periodically. You can choose how often it runs, and this is Secret Server going and actually querying out there. So it's going to query Active Directory, it's going to get the machines, it's then going to go to each of those machines and query the machines themselves for the services, tasks and application pools running as Active Directory credentials, and then it's going to list those out. And we can then see that I've got 3 on this machine. This one is managed, so this was one of the services on the dependencies tab that I just showed, but I've got the link to the secret. These 2 services here, they're running as AD credentials that we do actually have in Secret Server. We've got the link to the secret, but they're showing as unmanaged at the moment, which means they are not added as dependencies. So I could manually import from here, click on import, and then provide the information. Do we want the service to restart? What account do we want to use to actually, for Secret Server to go and do the update of the password on that service as? And if I click OK, that will then add those as dependencies to this secret, and these would go to managed. And from that point on, if I rotate the password in Secret Server will update it on these services for me. But what makes this even more powerful is we can create what we call discovery rules, so that at the end of every discovery, if someone has put a new server on the network and we've got the relevant services, or someone's created a new application with a new service, or someone's used this service account for something else, that discovery should be picking that up, and then you can have rules, and Secret Server will, at the end of every discovery, anything that's unmanaged, it will try and match to a rule, and when it matches a rule, it will do the import automatically based on that rule. So in this way, we can have new services going out, new accounts going out, and having them added as dependencies automatically, so we don't have to worry about it too much. if we take this discovery, we can also achieve that other use case scenario of the local admin account. What we would like is a unique password across all local admin accounts, but then we need to have a way of accessing all of those accounts and machines as well. It's very difficult. We get a very difficult management issue if we change the password on all of those to something unique. So this is a challenge that we can overcome with Secret Server as well. So as well as being able to discover those services, application pools and scheduled tasks, the Secret Server can also discover the local accounts on those Windows machines, also Unix machines, Linux machines and ESX hosts. So it's a similar process. It can go and find. In this case though, the manage means that we have a secret in Secret Server for this account. Anything unmanaged essentially does not yet exist within Secret Server. So the import here is slightly different. If I select a couple of accounts and go to import, what we're actually going to do is create these as secrets within Secret Server. So we essentially bring these accounts under management of Secret Server. So I can choose the account type and then importantly the folder that I'm going to put these accounts into. Then choose what I want to do with the password. So I do have options, but in most cases for security purpose we want a unique random password for each of these, and because of that we need to link off to a privileged account, so something like a domain admin account, an account that's got permission to be able to reset the password on these accounts that we're bringing in. And going forwards we can then either use the credentials of the account itself, or again we can link off to the same or a different privileged account. And at that point when we hit finish, Secret Server will create secrets for these accounts in the folder that you've specified. It will then generate a new complex password meeting the complexity that you've specified, and we'll actually go and update that account on that machine with that new password. At that point that account is then under management of Secret Server, not only from them being able to get access to the password for the local admin account on that machine or any other local account on that machine. It's not just limited to local admin account, and that can be important because if you have discovery rules and someone created an account on there, maybe as a backdoor or a piece of malware created its own local account, if we've got the automated discovery and we have the discovery rules, we can be discovering those accounts, bringing them into control of Secret Server, resetting the password so that whatever created it when it actually comes to use it is going to find that they don't have access to it. So that can be quite a good security measure as well. But a big thing of bringing these secrets under the folders is we've then got control as to who can access those secrets. We can choose to hide those secrets with the session launcher. I can just go to the RDP and launch a session to a device without actually being able to see the password. So we can give people access, not know what the password is, so they have to access this through Secret Server, which means that their access is being audited. We've got the expiration, so we can be having Secret Server automatically rotating these passwords every so many days. So it really get a combination of these security features together to give us that management and that security of these accounts, which is otherwise quite a difficult thing to achieve. Okay, so Thycotic as a vendor, they're not a startup. Been going for a number of years now. Secret Servers itself as a solution has been available for about 10 years. It's a very mature solution. As a vendor, getting numerous awards, growing at a rapid rate. This really is something that is a challenge for all organisations. We've got some customers on here. We can see that these customers are in different verticals, different markets. We've got some technology companies in there. We've got the likes of Microsoft in here. Big names using and trusting Thycotic to secure their privileged accounts. And why do people, why are we having this growth, as well as the actual the field and the challenges being for all organisations? As a company, we've strived to make the Secret Server privileged account management as simple and easy to use as possible. It's very quick to implement. The ease of use can't be stressed enough. There's a lot of feedback we get from customers is this is really easy to use. If we can make the IT admins jobs easier, if they like using the solution, then they actually adopt the solution. There's no challenges to implementation. We get ease of use and better security, which is absolutely ideal. There are some free resources that you can use. So we do have Unix and Windows discovery tools, so it won't go on and help actually manage the credentials, etc., as it would within the Secret Server solution, but it will give you a report to give you an idea of how many service accounts you've got out there. Are those service accounts set to never have their password expire? How old are the passwords on those accounts, etc.? So they're really useful. We've got benchmark reports, we've got tools where we can you can start to put together a privileged account management policy, and it kind of highlight the steps that you can put in there. And you can obviously contact Foursys at the end of this if you want a trial of the Secret Server, but there is also a free version. It won't allow you to rotate passwords. It's very much more a password vault. But if you just want to have a play and get a feel for the interface and you know, kind of make a start on privileged account management, then that might be a good starting point as well. And you can always progress from that free version into one of the paid versions that's going to give you the functionality to actually manage these accounts. So we've come to questions and running a little bit over, but we've got some time for questions. So let's see on the chat window what we've actually got. Okay, so usual first one. How is the product licensed? By secret, by user, or both? It's licensed per user. There is, I should say, there is a user element to it. Now, we're not here looking at the credentials in the Secret Server when we talk about users. We are looking at people that can actually log into Secret Server to access credentials, but then they've also got the addition of Secret Server. So we kind of recognize that there's a lot of functionality within the Secret Server. Some of the functionality will be relevant for some customers, won't be relevant for others. No customer typically wants exactly the same functionality. So it is possible to kind of bespoke this, pick and choose which elements you're going to make use of, and they will be licensed accordingly. The nice thing with it though is pretty much all of these elements are just license keys. So if you decide at a later date, things have changed, I do need that feature, or I would like that feature now, it's just a case of them buying that feature and you'll get a license key and it'll just turn it on within the solution. Okay, okay, so do you use bcrypt or similar to ensure that decryption of the database? I'm going to make an assumption here that we're actually talking about encryption of the database. So the data in the database is encrypted by the Secret Server itself. So it's done at the application layer. It's done using AES 256. However, if you want to use Microsoft SQL transparent data encryption, then you can use that as well. That shouldn't cause a problem. What happened in case of failure of the solution? So I'm guessing, so take this more as a DR type question. So we can have multiple secret servers. The web the web server element can be clustered. It can be clustered as an active-passive, active-active. The Secret Server supports SQL in always-on availability group, mirroring. We can do geo-replication, although that's a bit more complex and has an extra license cost, but that is possible. The Secret Server is also, you can schedule automated backups within Secret Server of the database and the application files, and that would allow you pretty quickly to spin up an entirely new environment if the worst case kind of happened there. And if there's a requirement to, you can also, subject to role-based access, export the secrets out of Secret Server as like a CSV file, for example, which you could then store and lock away either off-site or in a fireproof vault or something as an extra measure as well. So we've thought quite a lot about DR, very important question. How does Secret Server plug into AD? Okay, so Secret Server will synchronize with Active Directory. We can do that for authenticating to Secret Server itself, for granting access to the secrets within Secret Server, based on user, based on group. We can also manage the Active Directory accounts. As we've seen the service accounts, we can rotate the passwords on the Active Directory accounts. That's no problem either. And we can also query the Active Directory. That's part of the discovery, particularly for the service accounts, tasks, etc. As well. How are the data vaults mirrored? Okay, that kind of, I've answered a bit with the DR question. So because the encryption is done at the application layer, we will work with SQL mirroring always on SQL. But if you have to have separately replicated databases, that is also possible. But as I mentioned, that is an extra license. It is a bit more complex. Is it possible to give people their own store as well as controlling their access to the central store? Okay, so in terms of a store, we've got the one database. So everything has been held in the one database. That gives us a lot more control, a lot more ease of sharing and auditing these accounts. However, what you can do is you can. I had on the folder structure. If I kind of skip the screen a little bit. In the folder structure, you can enable something called personal folders. So at the top here, I've got my own folder. I cannot change the permissions on this. It is set so that only I have access to this folder. So this is my own personal folder. I can store what secrets I want in here, create secrets, put them in here, and only I will have access to these by default. So this is like my own vault. Now, we don't recommend storing personal information into here because we do have, again, kind of break glass scenarios where again, very heavily role-based accessed, and we can have four eyes principle on this, so one person alone cannot do it, but we do have break glass functionality. So technically, if you were storing your own personal stuff in here, it could be in a situation where that could be exposed. But if it's just related, if it's work-related things, but it's for your specific account, then this is exactly where you would be putting these things in, so no one else typically will have access on a day-to-day basis for these. They are yours alone. Okay, let's have a look, see if we've got any other questions. Regarding the cloud version, where are the data centers? Okay, so the data centers are in the Azure cloud. At the moment, they are US. So it's kind of been started in the US, but there are absolutely plans to roll that out to European data centers as well. We're probably looking at 2017 next year for that, and then you will have the option as to which data center you want to have your Secret Server instance held in. Do you connect to IBM mid-range AS400/iSeries? Okay, so today the AS400s can be managed. ZOS iSeries, they will be supported. They're not currently supported, but they will be supported next year, likely to be in the next Secret Server release in Q1. Okay, any further questions? No, that seems to be it. So with that, I will thank everyone for their time in attending. I hope it's been of use. As I said at the beginning, if this has piqued interest, if you can see the challenges and how the solution addresses those challenges, please follow up with Foursys. They will be able to discuss your requirements and challenges further, and as necessary be able to make sure maybe arrange a one-to-one demo where we can dive a lot further into the solution and how it addresses your particular requirements. So with that, I will again thank everyone for their time and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.